Citizen energy projects increase overall support for the energy transition and can be important drivers for regional development. However, regulations vary between countries, and citizen energy projects are confronted with differing obstacles and opportunities. What is the potential of energy communities and how can they be best supported?
Welcome, everyone. In this session, we want to take a look at a few actual projects and their impact on regional development. And we also want to ask what kind of policy support is necessary to help such initiatives flourish. And I will introduce our very esteemed guests, all of them women, by the way, in this panel on citizen energy in just a moment. But first, I do want to ask the audience to respond to our polling question, and I see that some of you are already doing so. So if you are a registered user, dear members of the audience, then please look at our Slido window on our live stream, and there you will find our polling question. And the polling question is this: do you think there should be more public and regulatory support to citizen energy worldwide? At the moment, the yeses have it, but please do keep voting, and we're going to come back and take another look at the results after I introduce our guests. It's my pleasure to welcome Tina van der Straeten. She is Belgium's Federal Minister of Energy, as well as a lawyer specialized in energy policy issues. Thank you so much for joining us. Also with us is Tri Mumpuni. She is Executive Director and founder of the People-Centered Business and Economic Institute, IBECA, which has successfully installed more than 80 micro hydro projects, as well as solar voltaic technology for water pumping systems across Indonesia. It's great to have you with us. Thank you so much. And also with us is Myriam Castagnier. She is the strategy manager at the European Federation of Citizen Energy Cooperatives, RESCOOP.eu, and she's been working extensively with island communities in the EU. So let's quickly go back and look at the results of those results look pretty straightforward indeed. 100% of those who voted say we do need more public and regulatory support for citizen energy. And now we will get our panelists' take, starting with an overview of the benefits and the challenges of citizen energy. And dear ladies, I am going to ask all of you, unfortunately I have to ask it in every session, to be quite concise with your answers. If you can, please try to keep them to 2 minutes, because we have such a limited time window for this very, very important topic. So I will begin with Tina van der Straeten and ask you to talk about what you see as the most pertinent advantages of citizens' energy.
Thank you. It's a real honor to be invited and a real honor to be here. I do think that your polling question was difficult to answer no to that question. I would also have answered yes. About your question, my answer can be very concise. I do think, yes, that citizens' energy bundled in energy communities lead to more democratic and inclusive energy sector, and will also build more support to the energy transition. We are living now in challenging times. The energy transition is a vast project, and although certain things are known, is still a question of evolving knowledges and learning by doing. The good thing is that we have a lot of solutions in place, and that we should focus on is not only on infrastructure, but also on people's minds and on people's hearts, and to combine both of them. The energy transition is not only about technical issues, about infrastructure projects, but also about people. And we have good examples, like people installing solar panels, like also installation support. Also, we see that when there is financial participation of people, that these projects have less problems to build a wind turbine. But I think we can do more if we understand better emotions of people linked to energy transition, and that we can answer to these emotions in a compelling way. So the answer is yes, it will be more democratic and it will be more inclusive. But for us policymakers, it will be very important to keep telling our story and to win people's hearts and minds.
You're telling us that, in fact, one of the central advantages from a policymaker's point of view is that a more inclusive, popularly based energy system also builds public acceptance for the challenges surrounding the energy transition. Very interesting indeed. Let me go over to Tri Mumpuni and ask, in your experience, what kind of challenges arise in the context of a broad community energy rollout? And if you wish, also tell us, because all of our poll respondents did support more public and regulatory support, what kind of public and regulatory support are your projects getting in Indonesia?
Thank you. Well, thank you, Dr. Crane. What I would like to share here is that the biggest challenge for us is to have a consistent regulatory framework, which nowadays I found it very difficult to have that, especially in the transition from the big, large, centralized system of energy for the community. And what we're struggling now, we change the transition to become more community-based, clean energy or renewable energy, and easy access for all, meaning that the development of renewable energy for the community we've done so far for the last 30 years is that we want to have an approach, and we did that successfully, the approach of techno-anthropology, where we can understand the community passion, energy, and imagination. The way we do it is completely staying together and listening to what the community. And we also understand that each island in Indonesia, we have more than 17,000 islands, and each island has its own energy, primary energy. We can find a place where the micro hydro is abundant, but also we have a place where only a solar PV that can be run and very small wind turbine can be applicable in that kind of area. But the biggest issue is that there is no such regulatory framework that makes sure that all the project done for the community base will be in place properly, because everything has to be done in a different way, meaning that in some area, it is very easy access to build a community-based development on energy for the community. But in the other part, there is some regulation that makes it difficult. For instance, most of the hydro is in a very nice place, forest, and some of the regulations saying that you cannot touch the forest. And I said, well, we're not destroying the forest. We really educating the local community that if we want to secure our electricity for the whole year, we have to secure the upstream, meaning that we have to keep the water running as what we design. And by doing so, we have to make sure that the trees in the forest has to be there all the time. So this is also environmental conservation in the other hand. But this is still not easy, because some of the government is saying that no, there is no way that you can go to the village, to the forest, for instance. This is one of the obstacles. Another obstacle is the local government regulation is not firm yet. So it's always changing all the time. What the best instrument we need is actually there is a firm regulation that a community-based development on renewable energy has to be clean energy, renewable, and also community-based. Thank you. That's what I can share.
Thank you very much. Let me go to Miriam Castagne and ask you to pick up on the question of legislative and regulatory frameworks, because clearly there was a sense among those who responded to our poll that we need not only more support in the sense of financial support, but also that regulatory framework. And we just heard from Tri Mumpuni about some of the challenges associated with that in balancing general principles with local needs and particularities. So perhaps you can say a word about how you think that legislation should be designed to unlock the full potential of community energy.
Yeah, thank you very much. Couldn't agree more with what has been said before, and I'm really happy to see that also the people listening agree that there is a need for legislation. I guess, I'm talking from a European perspective here, but we have the EU Renewable Energy Directive that was agreed last year that really gives citizens a place in the energy regulation. And we've seen that this has made a huge difference already, where before a few governments only were talking about this and working on this. Now really all EU governments are trying to put in place legislation for citizens. And we've already seen how this starts to benefit citizens all over Europe. And in this context, I guess what's important for governments to keep in mind when designing legislations is, first of all, if you're working on, definitions, legislation for energy communities in your country, it's important to make sure to include democratic principles. For instance, in the EU directive, there is specific principles that say this is a way to set up an energy community. And it ensures that citizens keep effective control over the energy community. So, for instance, cooperatives, they embody this principle by saying each member has one vote, regardless of how much money they've invested in the community. A second thing to keep in mind is obviously to make sure that the laws really benefit the citizens. There are plenty of laws in the energy market that benefit the big players, but legislation like, for instance, the EU Renewable Energy Directive has been designed specifically for benefit for citizens, and it needs to benefit those citizens in that case. A last thing, maybe in the EU at least, now that we have laws that are being put in place, it's not enough to just stop there. It's really important to go beyond and see how can we create easier procedures for citizens to enter the energy market? How can we set up funding mechanisms that are really specifically available to citizens? We often at Rescue, we talk about the principle of a bike lane. So if you imagine you take a cyclist, throw him on the highway and say, that's fine, you're part of the game now, together with the cars and trucks. We all know the cyclist is at a disadvantage here versus the cars and the trucks, but we still need cyclists to have a clean transport system. And the same way, we need citizens to have success in the energy transition. But citizens don't have the same kind of resources that big players have. And this is why governments really need to put in place simplified permitting procedures, financing mechanisms that are really specifically for citizen projects, if we want this to take off in Europe and across the world. In the EU, we've seen successful government initiatives in Scotland and Ireland, for instance, that really have put in place specific support mechanisms. And the last thing maybe is that in order to do this successfully, you need to have a proper look at your own legislation and really analyze what things currently put barriers to the citizens, and how can I create opportunity as a government? So to recap, make good definitions, make sure it's really for citizens, assess your own legislation to identify barriers and opportunities, and create simplified procedures and funds for citizen energy projects.
Thank you very much. In our remaining time, which unfortunately is quite short, but let me come back to all of you and ask you to talk a little bit about specific cases and best practices so that we can perhaps do what the BETD has set as its important goal and really give people a sense of how we can make this happen on the ground. So first question to you, Minister van der Straeten. If you can say a little bit about how you are working in Belgium to really try to facilitate citizen energy. You mentioned that you're all for it because it increases acceptance of the energy transition. So what are you doing to unlock the potential concretely?
Thank you. Thank you for your question. I met only a few weeks ago or several weeks ago with Rescue here in Belgium with regard to offshore wind. So I'm responsible for offshore wind, and we are at this moment, Belgium is the fourth country worldwide with regard to offshore wind. And we are going to double our capacity the upcoming years. We are going to double our capacity in the North Sea. And so it is absolutely my intention to see how we can link this also with citizens. And I talked with Rescue about their ideas and their suggestion, how we can work together and how we can make sure that we can involve our Belgian citizens also in our offshore wind move that we are planning. But I also asked them another thing. I'm also responsible for energy poverty. And 1 in 5 Belgians cannot afford to pay their energy bill. And I also asked them to come with suggestions and to work with me on specific cases that we not only work on infrastructure, but that we also work on energy bills. And also citizens and cooperatives can play a central role. What I see as something that is quite magic is that citizens can help to turn bonuses. For example, I visited Decathlon. They want to produce a lot of solar energy. They have not enough space, and so they buy surpluses from their customers. And so a surplus is turned into a bonus. And this is something that citizens can help make us realize, and so we can serve a greater good. So citizens are, for me, in my policy, people who I can rely on and who can make the transition work at infrastructure level, but also at people level.
And let me go back now to Tri Mumpuni. As I mentioned, you have been involved in numerous, dozens of community projects. So could you sum up for us what you see as the best practices for citizens' energy support to roll these out and have them be truly effective? I believe your microphone is on mute, Tri Mumpuni. Yes?
Thank you, Dr.
Okay, great.
What so far we do is that we have on our own project, because we ask the government to give space. The community needs space to provide their own energy, utilizing their own local resources. If there is water, they can make micro hydro, mini hydro. If there is wind, they can set up a wind turbine. Or if there is a solar PV, they can have that. This is very important, for us. And we are so far successful because we can fight to have this right. It means that we need somebody who keep persistent, asking, please give us space. Community needs space to provide their own energy with renewable energy. And also, this is what I call democratization of energy. Because what I understand and learn that the government love to have a centralized, big, huge, and very high technology. But what we need is just using the appropriate technology. Even though it's a high technology, we learned from German, for instance, a long time ago when we have we learned something from a program which actually the energy transition from a modern country to the traditional like Indonesia in the first place. And what we do is that this technology transfer to us really help the local community to decide. So what I say by democratization of energy is basically only regulatory support and also financial support. That's it. That's two things very important, and let the community decide what is the best renewable energy and clean energy for them. I think this is what I can say that is the best practice we have been dealing with so far, is because we are, fighting to get the right of asking space for community to provide our own. But my concern is this will be consistently can be there, because the changes of the political system will also change something like this. Okay, this is what I think. We have to have a firm regulatory framework and also financial support for the community to provide their own energy demand, and of course, helping them in establishing what I call energy democratization. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So a good deal of autonomy as a key best practice. Let me go over now again to Miriam Castaña with essentially the same request to you, that you talk a little bit about concrete projects and initiatives that you've been involved in and what for you emerged as best practices there in terms of enabling these kind of citizen energy schemes to be truly effective.
I think there's a few examples I can touch on from my experience from the islands that you mentioned earlier. One of the communities I can point to is, for instance, the island of La Palma in Spain, that we were quite involved with through the EU Island Secretariat, which is an initiative of the EU Commission. Where basically the initiative for the energy transition really started with the citizens. So there was a group of citizens that went around to all the municipalities on the islands and said, "Hey, we want to do an energy transition here. We think we have huge potential, and this will benefit our local economy." And they convinced all the 14 municipalities on the island to sign a manifesto. And they started working. They at some point also got the support of the local island government to start working more on a citizen-led energy transition. And they've really always focused on keeping the citizens at the heart, having the citizens drive the transition. And what happened over time is they also joined the EU Island Secretariat, which then triggered a whole process of conversation also with the government of the whole region and the government of Spain. Which in turn then helped advance again the energy transition on the island. And now they've actually launched the first energy community on the Canary Islands just this week or last week, I don't remember. So it's a really interesting example of how this really, it moves from bottom to top and back to the bottom. But the initiative in these cases, in many cases that we see, is that the communities are the ones driving the transition. And this is really why we think it's important to give them space in the legislation, because there is so much potential that is untapped at the moment and that we can unlock if we just give citizens the space to own the transition and drive it.
Thank you very much. And we're coming slowly toward the end of our time. So I would like to ask essentially all three of you to now take a step back and tell us how important you think people's energy, citizens' energy, will be in the overall energy transition. Is this kind of a small niche, or do you see this as really being an important driver? And I'll start with Minister van der Streten.
Thank you, Dr. Crane. It is a government's role to think global and to act local. And we set frameworks with the aim to empower people. And I have confidence that people, when they can be in charge of their own energy, they will do so. And they will do this even more when there are stakeholders and shareholders of their own energy system. And I also have full confidence that when you work with local communities, they will work more inclusive as when you organize it completely top-down. And I also learned, and I take this with me from Trimum Puni, technology transfer. And I thank you very much for your perspective on that. I'm also a lot of time working in my own perspective that we should also when we think global, also have in mind this transfer of technology, that we can distribute it in an equal way. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And before we go on, I want to get closing thoughts from our other two panels as well. But we did pose a second audience question, and audience members are voting on it right now. So dear registered users, go to your Slido function on your stream, if you would, and answer our question. This is a word cloud, and it is: what impacts do you expect from citizen energy projects? And let's take a very quick look at what people are saying. Knowledge transfer, decentralization, of course, there in the very center, and of course that is the essence of citizen energy, but energy democratization as well. And we heard Tina van Stetten saying at the beginning that she thinks that absolutely also helps drive public support and acceptance for the energy transition. I'm also seeing words like quicker rollout, prosumage, climate justice, P2P energy trading. So with all that in mind, dear panelists, mini-grids, clearly also part of this, I want to go back now to the other two. And if you would, just very brief final thoughts on whether you see this as an important driver in the energy transition, and also whether you would agree with what we just saw there on the word cloud. So first, Tri Mumpuni. Your mic is on mute again, sorry.
Decentralization is a must, and community-based also very important. Let have their own way. The biggest one, like city, factory, they can use whatever they like to do with the huge big technology and huge fund to support that system. But please, the community have their own access, decentralization, renewable, clean energy, and this is a part of empowerment. So I believe sustainability can be achieved if we using this energy democratization to the local community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Miriam Castañé, last word goes to you.
Thank you. You asked if there is potential in citizen energy. There's actually a study from a few years back that showed that in the European Union by 2050, half of the citizens in the whole EU could own half of the energy installations in the EU. So that gives you an idea of the scale of the potential. And I guess if I want people to go away with something from the session, in addition to what Tri Mumpuni and Minister van der Straten have already said, we need the world's citizens to get active if we want to stop climate change, if we want to implement the Paris Agreement and build a safe world for ourselves. And if you want people to take responsibility, you need to give them ownership, but real ownership. And I think everybody here on the panel and others are ready to do whatever we can to help make this happen, and are, of course, always available if ever anyone is trying to work on this and has questions or needs help. Thank you so much for having me today. It's been a real pleasure.
Just a very quick follow-up, if I may, because we saw climate justice also in fairly large lettering in our word cloud. Do you think, Miriam Castañé, that there is a connection between participation and democratization of energy systems and climate justice in the sense of an energy transition that leaves no one behind?
Absolutely. I mean, you've seen this on what Tri Mumpuni said. Communities all over the world actually are often the ones driving local development. And if you let local communities decide their own fate and their own development, their own economy, and how they want to build their community, that makes it just in itself. I mean, obviously, we're all still people and there are conflicts that can arise or whatever. But if people decide over their own lives, then the world is a much juster place than if things are only decided from the top down and very removed from the people that are actually affected by it.
Certainly from the composition of this panel, it looks like citizen energy is good for gender justice. So many, many thanks to all three of you ladies for being with us here to talk about democratization and inclusion in citizen energy-based energy systems. We're very grateful to have you with us.